5:01. We'll call to order the regular adjourned meeting for the Winnebago County Board for Thursday, July 28th, 2016. Agenda changes under Finance Committee. Please remove item B, budget amendments to be laid over. And also under new business, we'll have a closed session for personnel issues there. Any other agenda changes? Clerk will call the roll.
Sweeney? Tassoni? Webster? Westcott? Wilson? Biondo? Boomer? Padusha? Girl? Goral? Guevara? Hoffman? Jury? Kelly? Lyon? McDonald? Nicolosi? Here. Red? Salgado? Here. Schultz? 18 present, 2 absent.
Okay, we do have a quorum, invocation, and pledge of allegiance. Board Member Ted Biondo, all please stand.
Heavenly Father, give us the wisdom and the compassion to advance opportunities for all of our constituents. Give us the eyes to see them, the ears to listen to their concerns, and the hands to serve them in all we do. We need your intervention in finding solutions to problems that still persist in our society despite our best efforts. Father, help us prepare for issues that come before this body so that we may make the best decisions for all concerned. Lastly, Father, help us to see not our differences, but how much we have in common. Please unify us in our ideas and in every action as we seek to create a community that is better each day than the day before. Amen.
Mr. Jerry, would you like to come forward? I think you have a presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To my colleagues and the Chairman, tonight I want to present something to you and the people of Winnebago County. This is at no charge to the county. My wife and I are donating 2 of these. One will be in this room, the other will be over the elevator in the administrative building. I've often thought when this room was remodeled, it really wasn't finished. It didn't say the reason we're here. So tonight, I think it's complete. Although there's another thought that came up, I would like to put a mission statement alongside of it. So this is for you and the people of Winnebago County. It reminds us why we're here. Joe?
That's like that. All right.
And that was at no cost to the county.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Jerry, and express same to your wife, please. Okay. We have no awards, proclamations, presentations this evening, so may I please have a motion to approve the minutes from June 23rd, 2016, and lay over the minutes from July 14th, 2016. Moved by Mr. Guevara, second by Mr. Girl and Mrs. Goral. Additions, corrections, deletions. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Thank you. Announcements and communications. Clerk Mullins.
The items listed below were received as correspondence.
They'll be placed on file. Any other announcements? Mr. Webster.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just put a notice on everyone's desk there, and teaching kids by example. This is United Sportsmen's Youth Foundation, and they're planning their 13th annual Pecatonica River cleanup. They had over 100 volunteers last year. They went out in canoes and boats and that. They pulled up 3 semi-loads of garbage from the river, including 168 tires and thousands of plastic bottles along a 120-mile stretch of the Pecatonica River. from Greene County down through Freeport and Stevenson County and into Winnebago County. And so they're always looking for volunteers and so forth. And this year's cleanup is going to be Sunday, July 31, 2016. And so there's contact numbers there for you, and hopefully you can maybe support this yourself or encourage your friends and neighbors to do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, please have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Mr. Derry, second by Mr. Salgado. Mr. Nicolosi, any discussion? Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the clerk will cast the yes vote for all members present. The consent agenda is approved. Finance Committee, Mr. Biondo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to give the report for the Finance Committee. Item C is ordinance to amend ordinance number 2012-CO-062 to authorize the use of the remaining proceeds from the $1.68 million general obligation bonds. It's an alternative source revenue and to be used to fund the cost of improvements to Baxter Road at its intersection with Lindenwood Road, certain improvements to Lindenwood Road south of Baxter Road, and other related improvements. And I so move.
You've heard the motion, second by Mr. Gurl and Mr. Boomer. Discussion. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the clerk will cast the yes vote for all members present, and item C on the finance agenda is approved. Mr. Biondo.
Thank you. That concludes our report.
Thank you. Zoning Committee, Mr. Webster.
Thank you, Chairman. Your zoning committee this evening has a number of items before us. Under old business, we have one item, SU 0216, and this is in for a layover.
So ordered, that'll be entered into the record as a layover.
And under new business, we have Z 01916, special map amendment, SU 0316, special use, SU 014, special use, and finally, SU 015, special use. Remind you, all these special uses come with conditions.
Okay, they're entered in for a first reading as well.
And I'd like to suspend the rules and vote on all the new ones. All
There
four.
would be items 2, 3, 4, and 5, is that right, on the agenda?
No, it would be items under new business, 1 through 4.
1 through 4.
Yes. The first item was, that we talked about, was old business.
Okay,
That was the,
got it. So the motion is to suspend the rules to vote on 1 through 4 as indicated. Moved by Mr. Webster, second. You have a question, Mr. Fiducia?
1 through 4, so that does not include SU 1516A, correct?
that includes SU 0516.
Could I ask that, so that would be not number 5 then, correct?
No, sir, under new business, it's number 4.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you've heard the motion by Mr. Webster, second by Mr. Sweeney.
You okay?
Discussion on suspending rules, Mr. Guevara.
Are you-
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think
Please.
I'll defer to Mr. Webster for a second.
Mr. Fiducia, did you have something else?
No, I just wanted the special use permit for the community residents. I just wanted to either ask that for a layover, or I just didn't want to vote on this one.
Okay.
That's all.
So for item number 4, SU 0516, You want to lay this over?
I'm confused.
Sure.
Help me out here.
All right,
Okay,
I think,
I'm here to help.
the outdoor one is fine. It's the community residence is the one that I'd like to laid over.
Yes, that's under new business.
Okay.
What we have here on all of ours, old business starts out with the petition for the dog breeding operation.
Okay.
That's from our prior meeting, so that's old business. Then we go to new business, and there's 4 items on there.
Okay.
so what we're asking for is number 4, 0516 to be, do not consider the,
They redid it?
no, it doesn't.
All right. The agenda has been changed around. I'm sorry, the agenda has been changed around.
Okay, so I'm not as nuts as you thought I was. Okay.
Okay.
Was it item 5, Mr. Fiducia, you're interested in?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if it's okay, Mr. Webster, you moved it, seconded by Mr. Sweeney. If it's okay, we'll take 5 out and not consider that as a suspension.
Okay, so make a motion
Up to
to...
you,
make-
Mr. Sweeney.
Just for record, my intent was to second his original motion, which did include all of them.
Right, yeah, I'm just wondering if the friendly amendment, Mr. Fiducia, are you willing to say? It's up to you, Mr. Webster and Mr. Sweeney, you moved it, so. You want to leave it in?
So the motion was to suspend.
Do you want to leave that in, item 5?
No, deferring to Mr. Fiducia's wish, he'd like to lay it over. I'm okay with the layover.
Okay, all right, we'll pull that one in. So it'll be, I guess, 2, 3, and 4. This be the suspension. Restate your motion, Mr. Webster, please.
Okay,
You're moving to suspend.
for the record, I'm moving to suspend Z 0916, SU 0316, SU 0416.
You heard the motion, seconded by Mrs. Goro. Any discussion on suspension? Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the clerk will cast a yes vote for all members present. Our rules are suspended. Mr. Webster, we need a motion.
I would move to approve the 3 aforementioned
You
conditions.
Okay, second by Mr. Guevara, Mr. Kelly, Mrs. Goro, Mr. Salgado, Mr. Sweeney, and second.
The special uses come with conditions.
Any discussion? Any objections to the motion? Hearing none, the clerk will cast a yes vote for all members present. Items 2, 3, 4 on the amended agenda here are approved. Mr. Webster?
Okay, thank you. And finally, under other business, we have an ordinance to establish county engineer plan review fee. And number 2 is an ordinance to adopt updated fee schedule for planning and zoning permits. And number 3 is an ordinance to adopt an updated fee schedule for building permits. And these are in for first reading.
So ordered and entered into the record as a first reading.
Thank you. I'd just like to say on these ordinances to, for the fees, this is not in any way, shape, or form as a knee-jerk reaction, has nothing to do with our current budgets that we're dealing with. These are all fee schedules that have been worked on for quite a long time.
Okay. Mrs. Goro?
I want to make comment on the fees. Many times, I've been on different types of committees, and the first thing everyone hollers for, I want a study done, and so we've spent all this money, 50 grand, 100 grand, to have studies, where the 3 that you're looking at, between the highway department and our building department and our zoning department, they went through and spent all this time this past year doing what we would have consultants do. And I'm so proud of them because they probably saved the county about 150 grand that we didn't have to pay out for consultants. It's so nice to know that we have people so capable on our staff that they can get this thing done. And they all need to have We all need to stand up and applaud them for all the hard work. Have you gone over the schedules? You really need to do that because they are within a good limit. They're not overdone. It's right where they belong. They did the job that if we would have paid consultants all that money, our men did it better than that. Thank you.
Mr. Dornbush, when is the effective? When is the effective date?
The effective date will be October 1st for the planning and zoning and the building ones.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Webster?
Thank you. That's all we had, except for, I'm sorry for the confusion, David. I thought I was on the wrong page, apparently. And thank you, Steve, for correcting me here. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just in Mr. Webster's defense, he did have surgery today, so, and he's still here. What a guy, what a guy.
I still think the schedule ought to be backed up a week, so the zoning committee gets done a week earlier. That might happen a little bit of this. So please take that under advisement. Economic Development, Mr. Westcott?
Thank you, Chairman. We have no report, but I hope we have a meeting in the next couple of weeks.
Operations Administrative Committee, Mr. Jerry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Finance Committee and Operation Administrative Committee held a joint meeting, and the result of that is a resolution amending the previous approved early retirement criteria for county employees, and I move for its adoption.
Heard the motion. Second by Mr. Guevara, Mr. Nicolosi, and Mr. Biondo. Any discussion? All those in favor? Mr. Kelly?
I would like to move to amend the resolution by inserting an additional paragraph before the last paragraph to read as follows. Be it further resolved, the early retirement incentive program shall not be offered to elected officials.
Yeah, I think I'll defer to legal counsel, but he says that ship has already sailed. I don't think that's in order. Mr. Kronikis?
As a matter of fact, it's my understanding that you've already...
You have to get that, Mike.
Sorry. It's my understanding that you already had one person in that category that would, that's already applied for it, so you really can't take it back after it's been offered and accepted.
Okay. Main motions before us here, Mrs. Garl.
My question is, if that wants to be changed after our next election, can they change that policy at that time?
You can change the policy anytime that you want to, before it's offered and been accepted.
Okay.
So if you were to next year, if you were going to offer another early retirement policy, another early retirement offering, if you were going to do that again, you could change it around any way you want to. So it would, but it would be prospective. The problem here is we would be trying to apply it retroactively to someone who's already accepted it.
Thank you.
Just so you know, I think we've got 52 as of today signed up, so that's, our high was 39, so that should be hopefully $1 million plus going into our next year's deficits. Main motions before you, Mr. Sweeney?
If it was able to be done, just for the record, I would vote for your amendment there. And I also want to say for the record that the elected official that is on that list said on the record at a meeting that they would not be on that list. So I'm a little upset to hear about that.
Mr. Guevara?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo Mr. Sweeney's words on that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Mr. Jerry?
Yeah, and in regards to Angie, we will be bringing that up to eliminate that very soon in operation administrations where no elected officials will be permitted to join in on an early retirement. Unfortunately, like Mr. Kalinka says, the ship has sailed, but it's to me, it's not ethically right, and we will change that. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Resolution is approved. Mr. Jerry?
That concludes our report. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works Committee, Mr. Kelly?
We have two resolutions. The first, a resolution for the additional appropriation of motor fuel tax funds for the maintenance of traffic signals on the county highway system, and I'll move its adoption.
Heard the motion, seconded by Mr. Webster, Mr. Gurl, Mr. Boomer, and Mr. Nicolosi. So discussion. No discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is approved. Mr. Kelly?
Next, a resolution authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental cooperation agreement between the County of Winnebago, Illinois, and Pecatonica Township Road District for the reconstruction of the Sumner Road Bridge over Sumner Creek, and I move its adoption.
Heard the motion, seconded by Mr. Webster, Mr. Boomer, Mr. Salgado, Mr. Gurl, Mr. Jerry. Okay. Now, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution's approved. Mr. Kelly?
That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Westcott?
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to thank Mr. Vanderwoord and Mr. Kelly's committee for the wonderful work they're doing on the corner of River Lane, Forest Hills, and Pepper Drive. They've done a tremendous job, and it looks like they're going to be done real soon. Thank you again.
Okay. Public Safety Committee, Mr. Fiducia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Public Safety Committee is bringing forth one resolution. That resolution is authorizing the execution of air support mutual aid agreement with the extension formation by Air One and intergovernmental cooperation, and I so move.
You heard the motion, second by Mr. Guevara, Mr. Drury, Mr. Nicolosi, Mr. Westcott, Mr. Biondo, right? Mr. Salgado as well. Discussion. Mr. Guevara?
I want to thank Chairman Fiducia on this. He was patient, he was deliberate, he answered all of our questions, and we're just happy to get her done.
Mr. Nicolosi?
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Guevara, you took the words out of my mouth. Mr. Fiducia, you did a great job with this, lining things up, and you should be publicly recognized for, something that's going to help the whole community. And I'm excited to see the cooperation that our region is going to be using. This is just one step further in doing things together. So thank you, Mr. Fiducia.
Thank you for recognizing me.
Further discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The resolution is approved. Mr. Fiducia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The average daily population in jail was 778. Bookends were 1,183. Animal Services had 1,299 calls for service. We intaked 144 dogs, 332 cats, wildlife 204, one lizard, and a parakeet. We adopted 41 dogs, 56 cats, one lizard, one parakeet, and we also found a home for a ferret. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That concludes my report.
Boy, county government action there, man. Thank you.
Yeah, but someone's got to do it.
Somebody's got to do it. Unfinished business, we have an appointment to the Sewer and Sanitary District, Barbara McQueen. I'd entertain a motion to approve. Moved by Mr. Guerra, second by Mr. Sweeney, Mr. Gurl, Mr. Salgado. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Mrs. McQueen is appointed. This time I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss the upcoming appointment. Moved by Mr. Jerry, second by Mr. Nicolosi. Mr. Guevara. Any objection to going into closed session? Hearing none, the clerk will cast a yes vote for all members present. Our session is now closed. We'd ask all of you not directly with the board. Business conducted in closed session. Under new business this evening, we have a appointment to the New Milford Fire Protection District, Mr. Joseph Haynes. I'd like to consider that this evening. If we could get a motion to suspend, Mr. Jerry moves, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Guevara seconds. Suspending the rules, any objection to suspending the rules to consider this evening? Hearing none, the clerk will cast a yes vote for all members present. Rules are suspended and the motion's in order. Mr. Jerry, moved approved. This is Mr. Westcott, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Salgado, all seconds. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Chairman. My timing may have been off, but I plan on abstaining from this vote.
Okay, yeah, that's granted. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Appointment is approved, with the exception of Mr. McDonald, who abstains. Mr. Wilson?
Information that I would like to share with the county board members here tonight, and it relates to our tax cycle committee. The rules and procedures are on the website at assessor.wincoil.us, and the Board of Review website is bor.wincoil.us. And the complaint form is now on the internet. It was there on the 25th of July. There were 5,378 assessment changes on July 27th and 28th. The complaint filing deadline for all townships will be August the 29th. And I would like to share something that the Recorder of Deeds office gives us. And that's in 2016 through June, there were 4,591 deeds. Foreclosures were 180. As opposed to 2015, there were 206 foreclosures and 4,876 deeds. For the month of June itself, there were 920 deeds and 26 foreclosures. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Jerry?
Motion to adjourn.
Heard the motion, second by Mr. Sweeney. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are